the South African Federation of Trade Unions, that's SAFTU and COSATU, that's another federation, they've thrown down the gauntlet, saying they want to unite to bring about a national strike against corruption. Now, the state of the economy, unemployment and gender-based violence. The federations are demanding a seat at the NEDLEC, but I can tell you that COSATU already is part of NEDLEC. The one federation that is not part of NEDLEC, that's SAFTU. And they are demanding that the issues that affect workers be addressed there. Let's speak to Labour analyst now, Terry Bell, and he joins us from Cape Town. Terry, a very good morning to you. Firstly, what is your assessment in as far as these two federations coming together? People would have expected that there be antipathy between the two, given how SAFTU was formed, which is now led by the expelled former COSATU General Secretary, Zonzima Vav.
Good morning, Collie. No, it's something that is long, we've been waiting for this for a long time, and of course there's bad blood between them because of the background. However, it's not just SAFTU and COSATU that have come together. The Federation of Unions of South Africa, FEDUSA, has also joined this protest, as has NACTU, although NACTU is now fairly moribund, but nonetheless it's another federation. It's actually the first time that I can think of where all the federations, the combined labour movement, with a few exceptions, but the main federations have, for the first time, have come together since 1996, when they actually put forward a, I think, very reasonable macroeconomic policy called social equity and job creation. Now, together here this time to strike, I don't think it's necessarily a good tactic. I think they should perhaps be calling and putting forward, instead of being reactive about corruption, job losses, be totally proactive. SAFTU has put forward a very lengthy document which they want to table to NEDLAC to put forward an alternative policy and ways out of the economic and social mess we're in at the moment.
Yeah. Terry, it's interesting, just some of the reaction, particularly coming out of the COSATU briefing yesterday, people saying that, look, COSATU may well and truly lead this national strike, but they are part of the problem by virtue of them being part of the so-called ANC-led alliance. SAFTU, on the other hand, is not represented at NEDLEC. Might they be the force that really lends impact on this upcoming strike?
See, this is one of the problems. We may then end up with internecine feuding again. One side trying to get one over the other side, SAFTU putting forward something and COSATU opposing. One would like to see out of this, particularly given the seriousness of the crisis we face. I mean, it's not just 2.2 million jobs lost. It's how many dependents. The average, I would say, conservatively, 5 dependents for every worker. We're talking about 11 million people being cast into not just penury, not just poverty, but desperation. Not enough food to eat, not enough shelter, etc. So we're in a critical situation. We haven't got time now for internecine feuding, fights between federations and unions. It is a time for the labour movement to come together. This is an inkling that they might be coming together. I would like to think that it's the beginning of something, and I would like to think that instead of being reactive, they will be proactive again, put forward concrete policies of alternatives, of ways out of this mess, and how they should be implemented. Yeah. They could also suggest, as I have, that it starts from the top with examples. For example, why don't we have the highest, one of the highest paid cabinets, and certainly the largest cabinet in the world? Why don't we cut that? We promised to do it. Why not cut the wages of the ministers who are among the highest paid in the world? That's the sort of thing to do as a symbol, but in the meantime, put forward concrete policies to actually reduce this enormous wage and welfare gap. And that means more jobs, not just any jobs, but decent jobs at decent pay.
Terry Bell, how much power do labour unions still have in South Africa? And I ask you this question because the agreement between Nehau and government. That was the 3-year multi-agreement. That agreement was reneged on simply because Tito Mboweni said there is no money. Yet that was a legally binding agreement. They still have not won that battle. Why should people expect anything or any decisive action to come out of this particular strike, given what I would want to think is a limping labour space in the country?
The labour movement as a whole has been severely weakened over the past 5 to 10 years. They're a lot weaker than they were 5 years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And this is why I don't think the strike was necessarily a good tactic. It may go, if it goes off as a damp squib, it shows, it increases, it underlines the fact of their weakness. And that should not happen. The labour movement is still very strong because we still have at least more than 20%, possibly 23% of workers in formal employment are actually unionized. And the public sector is too. But you're correct. I mean, what the government has done by reneging on a legal deal that they themselves had signed up to 3 years ago, to turn around in the final year and refuse to pay, it sets an example to the private sector as well, and we're seeing that happening, I think, with the Gautrain and the Bombela people as well. It's encouraging employers, whether private or government, to actually have a go at and try to further weaken the labour movement. And that's bad for democracy in my book.
Terry Bell, thank you very much for those insights. He is a labour analyst joining us from Cape Town.